Hello everyone, today we continue learning Python and today we'll talk about methods of overriding of operators in Python. So let's start. But before we start that video, I recommend you subscribing to my Telegram channel. You will find lots of materials, modules, libraries, examples and tasks on Python in my Telegram channel. Also, I post all the announcements there, so if you want to understand what will happen to the channel in the near future, you can go here. And I respond to comments much faster than I do it on YouTube. So subscribe to my Telegram channel, link in the description down below. First of all, what is overriding of operators in any programming language? For example, you have 1 plus 1. Plus, it's an operator. And if we have our own classes, not like integers, booleans, not built-in classes, we want to override plus operator to do something like that. A, so our own class, our own object, plus A. So two of our own objects can be added together, and we can do it by overriding plus operator in Python. So how we can do it? First of all, we need to create our own class. For example, class A, and we need to use initialize, so init and self. Why do I use init? Because if we need to add something, we need that something, and I want to pass x right here, so comma x. Then self.x equals x. So we have init function which accepts any object, but I want it to be integer. Okay, just integer. So def init function. Then what will happen if I do something like that? Object 1 equals a from 10. So we have 10 as x in object 1, and then object 2 equals a as 20. So these are two different objects, and if I want to add them together, for example, object 1 plus object 2, I cannot do that, because I received type error now. As you can see, unsupported operand, types for A and A, because I have not overridden my operator yet. And to do that, what I can do is use define double underscore, they're often called dunders, so double underscore add, and again double underscore. And I need to put self and other. So what is add function? Add, it's a magic function, so magic function is a function when we have double underscores before and double underscores, I'll call them dunders, after. And add magic function is an operator plus. And if you want to use operator plus, we should override add function. And as you can see, we have two parameters in here. First we have self and then we have other. So self, it's our object that calls add function, and other, it's the object we add to our self. So as you can see, here we had object 1 plus object 2, and add function uses object 1 as self because we call it from object 1, and object 2 at other. So we can call it like that, so dot add and object 2. Actually, there is a lot of disadvantages if you call it like that. First of all, it's not readable. Python then says that readability counts. That's not readable at all. Just plus is better. And there are lots of disadvantages I'll talk about later in next videos. But again, you should just use plus. But later you'll understand why. Okay, so object 1 plus object 2. Object 1 itself and object 2 is other. And how we can add these objects together? Well, first of all, what we need to do is create a new object. Why? So we need to create a new object of the class A. Because imagine an operation. Let's print 1 plus 1, for example. 1 plus 1. That operation creates a new object and gives that object the value of 1 plus 1, so the value of 2. But a new object is created when we use plus. And that comes to everything, to multiply, to divide, to true division, to, I don't know, percent sign, to everything. And add, it's not an exception. So what we need to do at first is create a new object. I'll call it new as a, like that, so new a. But as you can see, when we create a object, we need to provide an integer. So we have x right here. And what I can do is use self.x and pass it to a. Because, as you can see, self, it's, in our case, let's write object 1 plus object 2, object 1 plus object 2. Self, it's object 1. And what I'll do? I'll pass all the integers I need to a new object from the object 1, and then I'll add object 2 integers Actually, you can add anything. So you can not only add integers, but for example, you can add strings, lists, anything. Your own files, I don't know, streams, everything that you can add. But actually, you need to think if that fits your code. So for example, if you have list, so I pass list in my A, and then to append an object to a list, I need to write plus, it's not convenient at all. You need to use append. For example, in Python lists, we use plus to append one list to another, not to append a list to an object. For example, if you want to, let's make an example, 1, 2, 3. If you want to add 4 to that list, you should not write plus 4. You should write dot append, because that's more convenient for other users and that's more readable. But if you want to add two different lists, then you can write plus and then 4, 5, 6, for example. And again, you need to think of your realization of your code, because that's crucial. Okay, but now we just add integers and we can use object 1 plus object 2. And again, I'll talk about that in the last video of this series. So we created our new object and we passed x inside of it. Then what I can do is new x plus other dot x. But not just plus, but plus equals, because I want to not just to add a value. Because again, when we use plus, a new object is created. I want to add and save the value to our new object right here. So new x plus equals other x. And then let's return our new object. Like that. As you can see, I printed right here, and let's run our code. We should not receive any errors right now, and we will not, because we receive main a object at some point in memory. So what's that? That's another operator, not an operator, but a function that can be considered an operator, okay? So that's another operator we have not overridden yet. Actually, what I can do, I can copy that line, so object 1 plus object 2, save them to object 3, like that, and then put object 3.x. So I will see 30 as the result, because 10 plus 20, we call plus, so we call add, we create new object, and we simply add x's together. Again, if you have multiple variables, so for example, you have x, y, z, you can add them in your add function. It's just an add function that helps you to work with plus operator. There are no like strict rules. The only rule is that you need to create a new object and you need to return that object. Okay, so I created object 3 and object 3.x is 30 right now. But what if I want to print just an object, so like that, and I want to see x? What I should do? Actually, I should override one function, which is called str. Actually, in Python we have str and wrapper, but I will talk about wrapper in the next video. Now let's talk about str. What is str? When you use print in Python, you call str from an object. For example, if you use print1, then you call str from 1, because print uses streams. If you don't know, you can watch my other video about streams and how about print and open secrets. Okay, but print translates every object to a string. Of course, it's if it's not a string. And when we use object 3, we do not override that string method. So as you can see now, return non-string, because I use return right here. But what I should do is return a string, for example, hello. And when I'll print any object of the class A, what I'll see hello, because in string I return hello. But what I should do is return self.x. But self.x can be anything, because there are no strict rules, we don't check any type, we can pass a list, we can pass a string. But when we use str, we need to return a string. And because of that, what I should do is use str from self.x. Let's run our object now, or our program now, and as you can see, object 3 returns 30. Again, it's not the best way to do it, because what you should do is use, for example, fstring, add self.x inside of it, then write, for example, a, so a as class, and you have 30 as a result. So that's more convenient for our users, because 30 is just an integer. It does nothing, or it tells you nothing. But when you use a from 30, for example, it's better, because your users can see the type and they can see like what you want. Okay, so a from 30, but actually there is one rule, in str we should return a string. That's it. I have a question for you. What will happen if I write new plus other? I don't have plus equals yet, because I just only use add. And it's just plus. I don't have plus equals yet. What we'll receive? We'll receive an error, but not the error of like plus equals is not overridden or something like that. We'll receive recursion depth error. Why? Because when we use plus equals, what we do? We use new equals new plus other. So Python has already inserted that plus operation in plus equals. So you can use plus equals in your programs when you use add. But there is a disadvantage. Imagine that you have a program that combines two files. So for example, you have one movie and you have another movie. You have a class called movie, and that class reads one file. So for example, you can pick 3 movies and combine them together in one class. That's cool. But movie can be 1 gigabyte, can be 2 gigabytes, and so on. That's a problem because in add, what you do is you create a new object and you copy everything from it. But plus equals, what it does, it should not copy an object, it should change self. Because plus equals, for example, object 1 plus equals object 2, like that, should change object 1 immediately without creating a new object. If I run my code now, but I should use new x plus other x, if I run my code now, what we'll see? We'll see the result at 30. But that's a problem, because we create new object for object 1 when we use plus equals, and we should not do that. What I should do instead of that? I should use def iadd function. So what is iadd? And we need to provide self and other. Iadd function, it's the function which is called in place addition. So in place addition, like that. In place addition, it's plus equals operation in Python. Again, you can omit that function, iadd function, if you want to create a new object, but that's not recommended if you use add. What you should do is use iadd function, and then once you call plus equals, iadd function will be called. But once you call plus, just add function will be called. That's it. So now let's create iadd function, and what I should do here, self.x plus equals other.x. And after that, there is one rule, not 2 rules as it is in add. I should return self. So what are the differences between add and iadd? Add creates a new object and changes the new object, but iadd changes self. There will be no differences in visuals, but actually there is a difference. Because if you have lots of data, your code will be faster, because you don't need to create a new object and copy everything from one object to another. I think that's cool. And actually, yeah, these are 3 functions I want to tell you about today, but I need to add another function, which is called define sub. Sub from subtract. So subtract, it's a function which is called when you use minus. Because if I use minus now, I'll receive an error. Well, actually I have sub, so I will not receive an error, but if I remove it and I'll try to use object 1 minus object 2, I'll receive an error. I think you know what I mean. And sub is called when you use minus. And actually there are no differences between add and sub, so there are no like big differences. The only difference is that in add you add some data to your class, but in sub you subtract some data from your object. Let's copy these lines from add and let's paste them right here. Let's remove plus, and I'll change that plus to minus. So new.x minus other.x. And actually that's it. So let's run object 1 minus object 2, and we'll receive minus 10. Minus 10, because object 1 is 10 and object 2 is 20. 10 minus 20 is minus 10. That's cool. And actually we have another function which is called isub. So isub, it's the function which is called when we use minus equals. Like that. So in place subtraction. Let's print object 1. And what I need to do in isub is I can copy these lines from iadd, paste them right here, and change plus to minus. So yeah, that's the only difference. We change our own object in place functions, but we change new object in normal functions like sub, add, and so on. Let's run our code again with minus equals. There are no differences, but now our code is better. Again, there are lots of potential problems with these functions, even now. And because of that, I'm making a new video series about Python operations overriding. And yeah, that's cool. So what we did today? Today we talked about 4 functions, or actually 5 functions. We talked about add, which creates a new object and adds that new object, and be sure that you return that new object. We talked about iadd, which adds something to self, not to a new object. We talked about sub, which subtracts something from an object, and we talked about isub, which has the similar behavior with iadd, but actually it subtracts something from our object. And we talked about string, which is called when we use print, when we use string on our object, and we overrided it to be more informative for our users. So now we can see a and our self-x instead of a.main and so on. That's a new series about Python operations, and I hope you like it. So leave a like, subscribe to my Telegram channel, and good luck!